In 1236 AD, Christian soldiers attacked the Andalusian city of Córdoba. This was not an unusual event. For nearly 800 years, the Iberian Peninsula had been a battleground between Christian and Muslim forces. But the Cordovans had no idea that this particular attack would be a surprise. It caught them completely off guard, and they were soon forced to flee. By the end of the year, the city had fallen, and with it, Muslim rule in the region came to an end. In fact, over the next 200 years, almost all of Al-Andalus would fall to the advancing Christians. Only one major city remained unconquered, Granada. Why did Granada survive for so long? What made it possible for this last Muslim stronghold to resist the Christian kingdoms for so long? To answer this question, we need to take a journey back in time to the height of Muslim power in Iberia. During the Golden Age of Islam, Muslim rule had spread from the northern coast of Africa into southern Europe, encompassing what is now Spain and Portugal. The great cities of Córdoba and Toledo were among the most important cultural centers in the medieval world. Then suddenly, around the year 1000 AD, everything changed. Internal strife and external pressure from the Christian kingdoms led to the fragmentation of Al-Andalus into a series of small, independent states known as tifas. These rival states were constantly fighting with each other, and the Christians took advantage of this fragmentation to begin retaking the peninsula. Despite the fall of so many Muslim cities, Granada remained unconquered. In fact, it wouldn't fall for another 200 years. Why? Granada was located at the far end of the Mediterranean Sea, surrounded by mountains. Its natural defenses were so strong that it was considered impregnable. But that wasn't the real reason why Granada survived so long. You see, just outside the city walls was the beautiful Alhambra Palace, and it was this palace that allowed Granada to thrive for so long. Built in the 13th century by the Emirate of Granada, the Alhambra was originally a fortress, but later became the seat of government for the last Muslim kingdom in Spain. With its luxurious courtyards, delicate fountains, and stunning views, the Alhambra Palace represents the pinnacle of Islamic architecture in the Iberian Peninsula. The palace covers a vast area, with over 40 hectares of grounds, including 2 palaces, several gardens, and even an old fortress. While the Nasrid dynasty only occupied the palace for about 70 years before their conquest by the Spanish in 1492, it still stands today as a testament to their rule. But there is more to the Alhambra than meets the eye. Behind its ornate facades and tranquil gardens lies a fascinating piece of engineering history. Because while the palace may look like a leisurely retreat, it was also once home to a sophisticated network of medieval pipes and channels that supplied water to every corner of the complex. This system of pipes and channels was an essential part of life at the Alhambra, providing water for everything from watering the palace gardens to filling the many fountains and even heating the royal baths. In fact, without this ingenious system of water management, the palace simply couldn't have functioned. But exactly how did this system work? How was it possible for the residents of the Alhambra to enjoy such luxury in the middle of a desert? To understand how this was possible, let's start at the beginning. The water supply for the Alhambra originated from several natural springs located in the surrounding hills. The Emirate of Granada had constructed a series of channels and reservoirs to collect and store this water. One of the most important sources of water for the Alhambra was the Genal River, a tributary of the Guadalquivir River that flows through Granada. The Genal was particularly useful because it could be dammed to create lakes and reservoirs, which provided a reliable source of water even during the dry summer months. Once the water was collected, it was then transported to the palace through a series of aqueducts. Aqueducts were a common feature of Islamic architecture, serving an important function in delivering fresh water to urban centers in a time before modern plumbing. These aqueducts were often impressive feats of engineering, utilizing gravity and the landscape to move water long distances without the need for pumps or other mechanical devices. At the Alhambra, a series of underground pipes and channels carried water from the various sources to different parts of the palace complex. This allowed the residents of the Alhambra to access fresh water throughout the palace, even in the most remote areas. But the transportation of water was only half the challenge. Once the water arrived at the palace, it needed to be distributed throughout the complex and used for a variety of purposes. The Emirate of Granada built a series of reservoirs and cisterns to store and distribute water throughout the palace grounds. These structures were often hidden away in the palace's courtyards and gardens, blending seamlessly with the architecture around them. the distribution of water was carefully planned out, ensuring that all areas of the palace had access to the resources they needed. One of the most iconic features of the Alhambra is its lush gardens. These beautiful green spaces were a popular place for the palace's residents to relax and enjoy the scenery. But they also served an important practical function. The gardens helped to regulate the temperature within the palace, creating a more comfortable living environment. The trees and plants absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly at night, helping to moderate temperatures and create a more pleasant living environment. This was particularly important during the hot summers in Granada, when temperatures could soar to over 40 degrees Celsius. But perhaps the most impressive use of water at the Alhambra was in the palace's many fountains. These beautiful structures were not only a source of fresh drinking water, but also a way of regulating the temperature within the palace. The fountains would release cold water vapor into the air, which would help to cool the surrounding area and create a more comfortable living environment. The water for these fountains came from a series of underground channels and pipes that ran throughout the palace. The underground pipes allowed the water to be transported discreetly and efficiently, providing fresh water to the fountains without any visible infrastructure. The construction of these elaborate water systems was a testament to the Emirate of Granada's advanced understanding of hydraulics and water management. They were able to create a reliable and efficient system that provided water for a variety of uses, from watering the gardens to heating the baths, and they did so without leaving any visible scars on the landscape. While the water system itself was impressive, it was just one part of a larger effort to make the Alhambra a luxurious and comfortable place to live. The Emirate of Granada spared no expense in making their palace a showcase of wealth and power. The result was a stunning complex that featured beautiful gardens, fountains, and a range of other amenities that made it one of the most desirable places to live in medieval Spain. Perhaps the most luxurious feature of the Alhambra was its thermal baths. These baths were not only a place to relax and socialize, but also an important part of the palace's efforts to provide a comfortable living environment. The water for the baths was heated using a sophisticated system of underground pipes and channels. The underground pipes allowed the warm water to be transported throughout the palace without any visible infrastructure, providing hot water to the baths without any unsightly pipes or furnaces. However, this simple solution was actually the result of some very complex engineering. The Emirate of Granada built a large basin near the Canal River and used a water wheel to collect the river's kinetic energy. As the wheel rotated, it turned a series of gears that pumped water up a hill to a large reservoir located above the palace. The elevated position of the reservoir created a natural pressure that allowed water to flow back down to the palace through underground pipes. This ingenious system allowed the emirate to harness the power of the river to provide hot water to the palace, without having to rely on expensive and inefficient methods such as wood-fired boilers. This thermal bath system showcases the ingenuity and sophistication of the engineers and builders who designed and constructed the Alhambra. By using a water wheel to harness the power of the river and a series of underground pipes to distribute the heated water throughout the palace, they were able to create a luxurious and comfortable living environment for the residents of the Alhambra. Despite the ingenuity of the system, it wasn't foolproof. During the summer months, when the water levels in the Genel River would drop, the water wheel wouldn't turn as fast, meaning less water would be pumped up the hill to the reservoir. This meant that during times of low water flow, the temperature of the thermal baths might not have been as hot as desired. However, this problem was mitigated by the construction of several reservoirs along the aqueduct that transported water from the Genel River to the palace. These reservoirs acted as storage facilities for water that could then be used to supplement the supply during periods of low flow. Additionally, the emirate may have used a backup system such as wood-fired boilers during times of extreme drought to ensure that the thermal baths always had hot water available for use. Overall, the water system at the Alhambra was a remarkable feat of engineering and an essential part of the palace's luxurious and comfortable lifestyle. The Emirate of Granada's sophisticated understanding of hydraulics and water management allowed them to create a reliable and efficient system that provided water for everything from the palace's gardens to its thermal baths. And while the system wasn't foolproof, and there were likely challenges and setbacks along the way, the Emirate's ingenuity and determination to provide the best for their people resulted in a truly remarkable feat of medieval engineering. Thank you for watching.